This is Akashvani. On the eve of the winter session of Parliament, the News Services Division of Akashvani brings you a discussion on issues before Parliament. The participants are Gopal Krishna Agarwal, National Spokesperson from Bharatiya Janata Party, Dr. Syed Nasir Hussain, MP from Indian National Congress, and Abhinandita Dayal Mathur, Spokesperson from Aam Aadmi Party. Senior journalist Vinay Kumar is moderating the discussion.
Parliament's winter session will commence tomorrow and it will end on December 20th. In all these days, we will have 21 sittings of Parliament, and on 26th November, Constitution Day will be observed to mark the 75th anniversary of the adoption of Constitution. The event would be celebrated in the Central Hall of Samvidhan Sadan, that is the old parliamentary building. All eyes will be on coming winter session of Parliament, where several key issues will be raised on the floor. And to discuss the issues before Parliament, we have representatives from major political parties. We have Gopal Krishna Agarwal from BJP. We have Dr. Nasir Hussain from Congress and Abhinandita Mathur from Aam Aadmi Party. Abhinandita ji, what do you think opposition's strategy will be to corner the government in the coming winter session of Parliament? Which will be the issues which the opposition would like to raise on the floor of both the houses?
Look, it's very unfortunate that the parliament session that is coming up, in fact, parliament sessions in the last 10 years, I can say, have stopped bringing any hope and expectation for the people of this country. The parliament that is meant to actually share the voices of the unheard, the voices of the public, remains absolutely deaf, especially the Satta Paksh, remains absolutely deaf to the cries of the common person. We have to remember that the parliament is not just a center for lawmaking, but it is also a place for the voice of the marginalized, of the public who have voted their representatives. Now, unfortunately, the priorities of the central government are such that they only focus, their only intent is to accumulate more power, to actually crush democracy, to actually crush any dissent, to actually crush any discourse, any dialogue that is for public welfare, that is for the future of this country. Unfortunately, what they typically do is that in every session, they will present a bill that only and only helps them accumulate more and more power. You had mentioned in your introduction that the center is likely to present two bills, one of which is very significant, and that is One Nation, One Election. My question to the BJP is, have you actually addressed all the issues of the public that this becomes a priority for you? You have not uttered a word on Manipur. The Prime Minister has not bothered to visit the state that has been burning for the last 1.5 years. Absolutely no responsibility there. But how do we accumulate more power? When we know, and the irony is that they plan to celebrate the Constitution Day on the 26th November. Well, great. But unfortunately, what you're doing is actually completely going against the core of the Constitution. One nation, one election, for example, is extremely problematic because it attacks the very federal structure of our Constitution. It serves public no good. It actually takes away voices for local issues, local concerns. And it's all a big hogwash. I mean, the game is actually happening, unfortunately, outside the parliament. The game is actually happening when the BJP is breaking governments overnight, when they buy and sell MLAs, when they actually misuse power, misuse agencies to threaten the opposition leaders. Is this the democracy and constitution that the BJP is planning to celebrate? I'm afraid not. What we want, the Aam Aadmi Party, what we want to see in the parliament is actually solid discussions, a real discourse, a real dialogue, collectively to find solutions to people's problems. What are these problems? Inflation, unemployment, crime against women, the absolute horrific state of the railways, for example. Very important thing that we must actually bring to the table is how these agencies are being reduced to crush any dissent, any opposition voice. And the pattern is more and more clear. So I would actually urge the BJP to, instead of celebrating 26th of November as a Constitution Day, for God's sake, surrender yourself to the Constitution. people of this country, whether you are a vyapari, a middle class person, a student, a woman, every single person is in pain. It is so hard to make ends meet. Look at inflation. I mean, you've put 18% GST even on air purifiers. You have no plan for climate action. You have no plan for job insecurity. Repeatedly, we are just being sold hate. Repeatedly, we are just being sold false claims only and only to gain absolute power, to misuse power. This is not how our forefathers actually envisioned our democracy to be and our parliaments to function. We sincerely plead the BJP that for God's sake, leave all these Jumla type of bills outside for electioneering, but in the parliament, remain sincere to the growth, to the progress of this country. It is beyond imagination where the BJP is taking the country today. A mockery of the constitution, mockery of the democracy. Parliament has to answer, has to discuss questions about finance, about economy, about bulldozer Raj, so many things that the BJP is misusing the power for. That is what our focus would be, to bring the voice, the pain points of the public to the parliament.
Yes, we have Gopal Krishan Agrawal ji from BJP. Gopal ji, you heard Abhinandita ji saying that opposition will be very keen to raise these issues of unemployment, inflation and climate and women's security. Apart from the legislative business, that is the government duty to bring to parliament. And we know the views of Prime Minister on One Nation, One Election, because former President Honorable Ramnath Kovind ji had prepared a report with wide consultations. That report was submitted to Honorable President, and now the government wants to take a step ahead and have a debate and discussion on this issue also. But apart from the legislative business, as Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson said, that there are other burning issues which are uppermost in the minds of common people, like inflation and all those issues which she pointed out. So how do you think BJP will be able to counter this attack from the opposition and also have a fruitful discussion on the floor of parliament? Because right in the beginning of the session, Prime Minister Narendra Modi always says that, in fact, his reiteration is always that parliament is a forum for debate and discussion, and the opposition should be ready for a constructive discussion on all issues. The government is ready, but we have seen that it doesn't materialize on the floor of parliament. So how do you see that the ruling party will be able to reconcile and bring all these issues on the table as well as carry on with the legislative business?
Parliament is an important part of the democratic setup of the country, and in a democracy the roles are clearly defined by our constitution. One is the legislative function, which the parliament and the state assemblies have to perform. Second is judiciary, that is by the law court and every courts have to perform, and executive has to implement the policies of the government. The important function defined for the parliament is about legislation, and legislative is an important issue that we should look. If there are good laws, transparent laws, properly discussed, debated laws, they will benefit the country, people, everything. It is important that we focus on this. And other is also important that various issues may be discussed. Opposition is open to bring various issues, whether they want to discuss on any of the issues of what they consider important. The government ministers, they give response to it. But what we have seen over the last several sessions is that opposition is not interested in the legislative function of the parliament. They just want to create chaos and just disrupt the discussions. When the government ministers have agreed to answer everything, the procedure for raising question is there, 0 hour is there, parliament procedures are there, you go through it, but you cannot say okay, only we will discuss and not pass any legislative function. Both have importance in the democratic setup, and we are ready for both of them. And we also have to understand that there are democratic institutions which look into various matters. If we have Ministry of Finance, which looks after the economic growth and development policy matters on that. RBI is there to control and regulate inflations. Then women empowerment, there are ministries, everything. The government departments, ministries, institutions are there. Various OBC commissions, all these women and child welfare commission is there. So you have to understand in a democracy that all institutions have to work and perform their role. You cannot say only debate will get into the right answers. You You debate, raise the questions, government will answer, but there are institutions which will take up the matter, which they are taking. Inflation is being controlled by the RBI. We have one of the range bound inflation, that is the targeted inflation that is done. Economy is doing so wonderful at present level. We are one of the fastest growing economy in the world. We have a strong target. We are the fifth largest economy. Government is focusing on employment generation, entrepreneurship, self-employment, the service delivery mechanism, which the direct benefit transfer and targeted delivery, the government is using technology, e-governance. All these issues are being done. If you have any questions, we are ready to answer. But when you raise the question about, you say one nation, one election, what is the use? You have to go to the history. Law Commission has several times given in its report that we need this one nation, one election. Standing Committee of Parliament, when we were not in power, they have also recommended this. Election Commission itself has given in writing that it will save cost and it will be beneficial and bring more efficiency in the election process. You just now mentioned about the committee which the government had specifically set up under the leadership of former President Shri Ramnath Kovind, that has given its report. Earlier, when we started this democratic process after post-independence, our earlier elections used to happen in the simultaneous election. It was because at that time, the Congress and our government, which is now in opposition, they manipulated Article 356 due to various reasons and the conflict between some of the issues. Simultaneous election got derailed. So clearly, benefits of one nation, one election have been enumerated. The challenges are there. We agree there are challenges to implement them. They are implementation policies, but if there is a challenge to implement a good policy, you cannot say you should not have that policy. We want to request opposition decide whether one nation, one election is beneficial or not. When we talk about the beneficial policy, they'll talk this challenge, this challenge. It is for us to implementation challenges we will meet. That's very important. And how much time you will take to decide a thing. Indecision was the policy of the earlier government. Policy paralysis was there. They will not decide on anything and linger on. It is not our government that linger on things. If there is a clear-cut indication of Law Commission, Standing Committee of Parliament, Election Commission, specific committee on this one nation, one election, they have given report and general perception is that this is beneficial. It should be implemented. We request the opposition, you bring out the challenges, underline the challenges. It is for the government to meet those challenges and implement. So this is one thing. Second, I would also like to say, when we are talking about the Waqf Board Amendment Bill, you have to understand the ground reality. You cannot look into political aspect of appeasement politics into nation building. If the Waqf Board is the third largest owner of properties in India, how they have got this property? There is no transparency. There is no appeal mechanism. In a democracy, judicial appeal is an important factor. Under the Waqf current status, appeal against any actions of the Waqf Board is against the appellate tribunal, which only formed by the Waqf Board committee only. So there are issues. We are just trying to amend and bring transparency into it, bring the legislative oversight over it. So what is the problem? Last time it was discussed and the opposition wanted it to be sent to the Standing Committee of Parliament. It was
the JPC, yes.
Yeah, JPC it was sent. Now in the JPC, you see how TMC MP behaved in that. He was so violent in the JPC. So when JPC wanted to go to visit Karnataka, where problems have been raised by several people that how Waqf Board is being misused by certain sectors. So they are disrupting that. You don't want to discuss and debate. We are ready to discuss and debate, but you cannot say it will only be a debate that the parliament will have. Legislation is also an important part. So I think we should understand that at present moment, India's economy is a very strong position. Global, why can't you discuss about the recognition that India is getting at the global platform, whether it is G20, whether it is BRICS, whether it is Quad, whether it is United Nations General Assembly's permanent membership. There we are getting so much recognition. Even our role at the Ukraine-Russia crisis is being appreciated by even developed countries, that India is in a sole position to take lead in crisis resolution. Our relations with, at one point of time, Russia, Ukraine, both are good. At another point, Europe, Gulf countries, Israel, Palestinian. Today only lot of support has been given to Palestinians. So Israel, we have good relations. So how we are balancing? Diplomacy is balancing global geopolitical compulsions and India is managing that. Why can't you discuss that? Why can't you discuss economic development growth? You bring out challenges and then we are ready to meet out. So I think opposition should understand that the role of opposition has been clearly defined in the constitution. They should perform their role in that, and it is both ruling and the opposition that parliament should be a platform for healthy debate and cohesive environment of debate, which is better for the democracy. It is not only the ruling party which is responsible.
Abhinandita ji, you heard Gopal Krishan ji arguments on that, and he has made opposition also responsible in some way, that the constructive debate can only take place when both the sides are ready to discuss and debate all issues.
Since coming to power in 2014, the Modi government has made repeated attempts to dilute the provisions related to a number of rights of the people. Two things. What we look at is intent, need, and timing of things. So the way that the BJP proceeds, take, for example, the case of Delhi, which is very, very important. Now, a state which is almost a half state but has an elected government, they are completely disabled by the center through the lieutenant governor. The matter goes to court. The Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi, elected by the people of Delhi, gets relief from the court. And then, to subvert that, the central government actually brings in an ordinance. How do you think we are to trust anything that the center government does? It is, all in all, for political gain. Two, your intent is just absolute power. The question that the BJP spokesperson actually needs to ask is, what is your discussion? What would you discuss when we ask questions about you poaching sitting ministers, MLAs, MPs, toppling governments? Is this your use or misuse of the constitution and the provisions provided?
It is not
Sir,
a public speech.
Sir, I did not interrupt you, so I will
No,
quickly...
but the debate is about the parliament, not
Yes.
Delhi state government assembly.
No,
Yes,
no,
Gopal ji. Abhinandita ji, we also have Congress leader Dr. Hussain with us. Dr.
Yes.
Hussain, this parliament session is just around the corner from 25th November. What do you think will be the opposition, particularly the Congress strategy to raise these issues, and what kind of debate can be on these two crucial bills which the government wants to bring in this winter session?
See, on One Nation, One Poll, I think we have already given our initial reactions. All political parties have written, especially the opposition political parties have written to the president of our country, they have written to the prime minister, they have given their initial reactions. I think in a country like India, where we have multi-party democracy, where we have state elections going on at different times, it would be little difficult to implement One Nation, One Poll thing, because initially when India got freedom, when with our parliamentary democracy, initially it was like One Nation, One Poll. But then because there were issues in the state elections got derailed because of implementation of Article 350's president's rules were there. Parties split themselves. The parties wanted early polls. So many things were there. But somehow, I think the country realized that it is not very practical to go with One Nation, One Poll. That is how the present federal structure evolved. So I think on the practicality of the whole issue, as a slogan, it may look good. As we debate, we can say there will be less use of resources, etc., etc. So many things may be said about One Nation, One Poll. But at the end of the day, what is more important is, in a federal democracy like our country, how do we actually allow the democratic institutions to evolve and function on their own? Because what is more important is the say of the people, and at the same time, we have to allow the political parties to have their say. If somebody wants to withdraw support to some other party, if the government falls, what will happen then? If there is some law and order situation which is very grave and the center wants to step in, and if there is implementation of Article 356 and the president rule is applied there, what will happen after that? So there are certain things which need to be thrashed out, I think, which is very, very difficult. Many legal luminaries have also spoken on that, many articles have been written. So let us see how it comes up, and let us see what are the arguments on behalf of the government, and we need to look at the practicality of the whole issue. So this is about One Nation, One Poll. The second thing, the WAF issue, I am there in JPC as a member from Congress Party. So we have been having long discussions on WAF. We have toured a few states. but we still need to tour North Indian states. And since there are stakeholders of works in every village in the country, we need the stakeholders, we need to meet them, we need to understand the issues at the grassroots level in the WAF institutions. At the same time, what I find is that more than trying to strengthen the bill, more than trying to find if there are any lacunas in the bill, more than trying to find as to why the WAF institutions couldn't do much as they could have done, I think the government is more important in drumming up support to its bill by calling non-stakeholders in JPC meetings. It is about WAF. It is about the WAF stakeholders. People belonging to different political parties, people belonging to fringe organizations are being invited in JPC to drum up support to the government. So I think that is not how it has to be done. JPC is a mini parliament and the JPC need to go into threadbare of it because it involves the law of the land in different ways. It involves the law enacted by the central government. It involves the law enacted by various state governments. There are various laws which may be at loggerheads. There are Supreme judicial judgments on WAF issues. There are large number of cases pending in Supreme Court. There is the issue of tribunal. There is the issue of bureaucracy. There is the issue of tenancy acts. There is the issue of land acts. There is the issue of land reforms act. There are issue of personal law of Muslim community. There are issue of how do we administration according to Sharia. There's so many things involved. I think the members, those who are there from different political parties, including the government, need to understand these issues very clearly. Only then we will be able to come out with a good draft. Earlier, JPCs went on for years. The earlier when we had amendments in 2013 and when the 1995 WAF Act was brought in, before that it went on for years. So you cannot have 2 months or you cannot have a few sittings and say that this is what is happening. So I think the BJP, as usual, which is an anti-Muslim party, a party which harps on anti-Muslim polarization in the country, they have picked up issues which are very emotional in nature, very divisive in nature in the past. Those issues are finished now. Now they want to take up this issue and their social media ecosystem is active in promoting all kinds of nonsense in social media, all kinds of misinformation in social media. For instance, there's this misinformation which say that the WAF can claim any land and say it is their land. I don't think there is any law in the entire world, not just in India, where any institution can just claim any land without proving itself and say this is our land. So these kind of misinformations are being pushed into social media. Somebody is saying that WAF is taking away mandir lands. How can WAF take away any mandir land? No chance of that. So there's so many issues. There's something called WAF by user, which involves thousands of years of properties of this thing. So I personally feel in this, there should be laws to govern religious institutions for all religions, whether it is Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh or anything, and those laws should be specific. I think the existing laws are more or less similar. There could be some minor differences here and there, but more or less the laws are similar in one way or the other to all the communities, and it should be like that. There shouldn't be much intrusion by the government. But then I would say that there should be threadbare discussions by going into each issue. There are hundreds of judicial judgments. High courts have given different judgments. Supreme courts have given different judgments. So we need to go into all these details. If you ask me, I don't think we can bring that bill in this session. We may need some more time to actually sit and finalize with the amendments and to suggest the improvements in the amendments or also to reframe the amendments. We may, I think, have to go clause by clause. It is not just 44 amendments. There are actually 44 big amendments, but there are 176 small amendments in that. So that needs to be taken care. I don't think we can bring that down.
Gopalji, Dr. Hussain has underlined these very complicated and very complex issues and many misgivings about the functioning of Waqf Board. So in his assessment, doesn't look possible that JPC can rush through, and he is in favor of a very comprehensive, threadbare discussion on all issues. So how do you respond to that?
What I think is I much appreciate Mr. Hussain that he has focused on what the role of actually parliament is, and he has raised certain issues, but on the both I'll answer. First is about the one nation, one election. I appreciate and think that he has acknowledged that this is a good concept. He has underlined certain challenges on that, on implementational challenges. But as a concept, he has appreciated that one nation, one election is a good concept and good policy. And earlier I had said that there are various commissions, etc. They have also underlined various benefits out of it. So what I want to say only on this is, if there are implementational challenges, you just do not throw away the policy just because it is difficult to implement. Those challenges which you have underlined, surely we will find out a way that will be discussed, and once that bill is passed, that infrastructure or implementational challenges, how to meet out, etc., how we will meet them out. And it is not that today, if it is the bill is passed, there will be rules, regulations, all things will be done. But I think a good concept cannot be thrown away and rejected just because it's a difficult implementational challenge. So this is one thing I want to underline. Second, about the work board, you have spoken a lot, Mr. Hussain, about the JPC commission. I want to just say one thing is, you underlined about the stakeholder, about taking in confidence into stakeholder. How can you say there is only one religious community which is the stakeholder of the work board? We have seen what is happening in Karnataka. Religious endowment trust land is being taken away. There can be one stakeholder when you are a law which is affecting the other communities also, other religious groups also. So one important thing is all are stakeholders. If there is a law which is affecting not only one religious community but affecting other communities also, then everybody has to be considered as a stakeholder, and that's what we are doing. Second thing is, in any law except the work board, there is no judicial oversight, which is a basic concept of governance and transparency, and which is the basic concept of our constitution. The third important point is, Work Act is a law which was formulated by the British imperialist forces, and their stated policy was divide and rule. So basically we have to understand, if we are talking about some act, what was the objective, what was the intent of that time. It's a very old, it needs amendment. We are not doing away with the Work Act, but there are certain amendments which are taking place. Next point that I would like to see is, why there has to be a policy of appeasement to particular thing. How work board have become the third largest owner of land in such a large country as India, railways, government, and the third is work board. How it has become like that, how the ownership has come to such an organization. So I think both bills are very important.
Can I come in, please?
Yes.
I'll make 3-4 quick points. One is that I think this is what spread. Not even one issue in the country where the WAF has taken away anybody else's land. There's not even one issue. Let BJP prove it. One. No mandirs, no churches, nothing, nobody else. In Islam, we cannot take anybody else property and say this is our property, especially for WAF. Two, he is speaking about WAF Act as a British Act and which was divisive. What is Endowment Act? What is Muzrai Department? What are temple trusts? WAF means endowment. WAF means donation. WAF means dan. Whether there is a board or not, but a person can do WAF. In the sense, a person can give donation in the name of God. Whether there is a board or no board, even if the board is scrapped also, there will be masjid, there will be dargah, there will be kabristan, there will be eidgahs, and any Muslim, any Hindu, anybody can donate land for these causes in name of Allah. And once it is donated, till D-Day, it will be there as an donated land in the name of Allah itself. Number one. Number two, BJP friend doesn't know that Waqf board doesn't own even 1 inch of land. This false narrative that board owns the land is completely false and fabricated. Not even 1 inch of land is owned by the board. Board is only custodian of the WAF donations that have been given to particular WAF. Three, he is speaking about tribunal. There are 26 tribunals in our country. In every tribunal, there is a finality of the decision. After that, there can be who says there is no revision of the judgments of the tribunal. Revision, then how come so many cases of WAF are there in Supreme Court and High Courts of different countries, like other departments? There is revisions of these cases. Number four, and the tribunal is not constituted by the Waqf board. This is a misinformation that is being spread by the BJP ecosystem. The tribunal is set up by the state government. There is a sitting judge or a retired judge in it. There is a state-level senior officer in it. There is a domain expert in that. This is appointed and constituted by the state government, not by the Waqf board. So this misinformation is spread. And what the rules that are there on the Waqf board are almost the same that are rules for the endowment boards, for the Muzrai department, for the temple trust. So these people are speaking about putting up 2 non-Muslims in Waqf board. If you look at all the endowment boards, Muzrai departments and temple trusts, it is very clearly written that only a Hindu will be on the board, only a Hindu officer will be manning those endowment departments. So that should be the case for every other religion in the country. And let them say, Karnataka case, was the land taken away from the farmers? Karnataka case was very clear, only notices were issued. Supposedly, if a land which belongs, whether it is to an endowment board or to an work board, when they find that their land is under the occupation of somebody else, it could be a farmer, it could be a corporate man, it could be a normal person, it could be a person from the same community, then the board, endowment board or the work board will issue notices to them and will say, see, this is a land belonging to us, please prove your ownership of that thing. So he has to prove his ownership. The real owner, he can give the documents to the district collector or person who is authorized to check those papers.
Parliament's winter session will begin tomorrow. Akashvani will keep on bringing news from Parliament during winter session and will keep a close eye on developments in Parliament. Thank you all for participating in this lively discussion with Akashvani.
You were listening to a discussion on issues before Parliament. The participants were Gopal Krishna Agarwal, National Spokesperson from Bharatiya Janata Party, Dr. Syed Nasir Hussain, MP from Indian National Congress, and Abhinandita Dayal Mathur, Spokesperson from Aam Aadmi Party. Senior journalist Vinay Kumar moderated the discussion. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani.